Let's get it poppin', bitch. Cause I'm a spider whore. Alright.
What the fuck? We saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and I saw it twice. I almost saw it a third time yesterday with Daryl, but I was like, nah, let me not, because I was going to just be too spidered out. But I am going to see it for a third time. You only saw it once, but I know you got a little bit of recap. Shout out to New Rockstars for the recaps.
Yep.
Shit. Watching it, there was a lot to take in, but for me, I didn't feel like I was super overwhelmed by everything that was happening.
Yeah, I definitely was. That's why I was saying I need to watch it a second time, because like it was good. Like I understood the story and whatnot, but like there was lots of fan service involved. Like, you know, there's a lot of appreciation put in for Spider fans. So it's like it kind of took a lot for me. Like it was overwhelming for me, and like trying to pay attention to everything.
Also, you know, Spider-Man being the most, honestly, he's the most popular Marvel hero and probably one of the most popular heroes of all time. So seeing the Spider-Verse and so many variants of Spider-Man, that was a lot of Spider-Man just to take in. And you could go on all day on all the Spider-Man that we saw.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of Easter egg Spider-Man, and there was also a lot of newly created ones just for the film. Obviously, they can't really sit here and put all these Easter eggs all in one frame, you know. Yeah. So they had to like create a bunch of, you know, Spider-Man to really fill up the environment, you know, in each frame and in each scene.
I thought it was pretty cool to see when they were in the Spider-Verse, and also at some points, like when certain Spider-Man would come up, they'd have like a little description in the corner being like, this is blah 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 Spider-Man from Earth, and then it would say the type of Earth. So it gives us kind of like a idea of, you know, Spider-Man that most of the people have just not seen, because we're so used to the Peter Parker story. Now we're seeing the Miles Morales story, and then if you play the old Spider-Man games on your like PlayStation 2, like Shattered Dimensions and stuff like that, we're used to seeing those variants of Spider-Man. We never saw most of them on the big screen, so seeing those guys on the big screen is what took my eye initially, and I think that's probably why I wasn't so overwhelmed by the other Spider-Man. I still knew that they were there, and it was still fun to like see them, but you know, like seeing 2099 Spider-Man was the highlight for me in the Spider-Verse, because playing with him on Shattered Dimensions, fire. I thought that was like great to see him.
What was the other game that he was affiliated in?
Was it there's so many freaking Spider-Man. Isn't there like a Edge of Tomorrow one?
I think it was that one. I think he's in that one too.
It was when one Spider-Man goes to the universe, and then like the Peter Parker is like a villain or something. And I don't know. I think I'm getting the stories mixed up, but
I don't know. Video game stories are usually foggy for me, but yeah,
super foggy, because like we're playing them as kids, so we have to like go back and watch them on like YouTube videos of like walkthroughs. And
just remember like the gameplay in action. You don't really remember too much of the story.
I mean, there's always been Spider-Man video games are always more fun to play than any other video game. Like besides like Arkham Knight, but that's like a later video game. Like it wasn't during the time period where we were growing up renting games off of Hollywood Videos and Blockbuster and shit like that.
Hollywood
Videos, yeah, that's the old one. As far as Easter eggs, what Easter eggs did you point out where you were just like, holy cow?
So there was one that I really did like that was pretty funny, and it was the old, like the very first like Spider-Man in color cartoon, where he's swinging behind them and then like totally flops. That one was pretty cool to see. The Donald Glover Prowler.
What?
I know he's not a Spider-Man cameo, but just seeing that solidifies, you know, Donald Glover's character from Spider-Man Homecoming as, you know, the Prowler. Obviously, when we first see him and, you know, he's introduced as Aaron Davis, we know Aaron Davis is related to Miles Morales, and then obviously they never mentioned him in the theatrical cut, but in the deleted scene for Homecoming, he's on the phone with Miles.
No, it was good to see. It was good to bring him back too because that was the only time we ever really got to see him was Homecoming, and the best thing they ever did for him was have him come back in the Prowler suit.
Right.
So it was good to see a live action Prowler, and it also indicates to us that there is a Spider-Man Miles Morales because you know he goes up against the Prowler. That's inevitable for Miles. He goes up against the Prowler.
It could also just be because remember, if Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the main time Spider-Man, then that means that his in-universe Miles probably isn't going to be Spider-Man.
Probably isn't. You think it's probably not going to be Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I think you're probably right on that is because Miles' backstory, Earth 1610 gets imploded. Right? So his Earth gets destroyed. And then he's later transported in his story, Earth 616. But apparently it's Earth 1999.
But then here's the thing, too, is that what I wanted to point out earlier, but I saved it for this. So, if Across the Spider-Verse and Into Spider-Verse is set in 1610, then that means that that's main timeline Miles Morales. So, what was confirmed earlier this week, I guess, or over the weekend, that there was going to be a live action Miles Morales. Does this Miles transfer into the MCU at some point? But also, how would that work? And here's where I wanted to save this. In Multiverse of Madness, when Strange and America is going through, the different universes, they actually become the styles of each of the universes. So it's like they went through that Inkblot universe where they turned into ink themselves, and they went through some 8-bit universe, I think, and then they turned to 8-bit. But in the Spider-Verse, when they go to other universes, they stay their style. And even we saw in the Spider-Verse, society or whatever, when we saw PS5 Spider-Man, he was still in his own animation.
Right.
And then obviously when we saw Donald Glover's Prowler, he was live action, but around animated characters. And do they see those animations? Because they if you think about it too, no one has ever really questioned anything.
Why do you look like that?
Yeah, except for this movie, when they fought the Vulture, they noticed he looked...
why does he look different? Like a Renaissance type of thing?
But that's also, you know what? They did say that. They didn't say anything about his animation style. They just said that he looked Renaissance.
Yeah.
Which you can barely tell because the style of animation was in that Da Vinci art type thing. But no one has ever, in the movie itself, has ever mentioned anybody else's animation. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of makes you think, did Donald Glover see all these people as he sees, himself and, where he's from? Is it the same way for everybody else?
You know what I think? I feel like it's one of those areas. It's one of those weird areas where it just makes sense to just have it that way. Yeah. Or probably the law in the Spider-Verse is where in order for you to tell who's who and which Earth is where, in the Spider-Verse you will remain as you are from whatever you came from.
Right.
So I feel like that's why the Spider-Verse is kind of, or everybody that's in the Spider-Verse from different Earths still looks true to where they are because it's probably the best way to identify where they're from.
Yeah, and I remember you mentioning when Gwen's in her universe, it's very
like a coloring book, painty kind of
right, like a watercolor type universe, and even when she's in it, she matches that universe. But then when she's in Miles's universe, it's in Miles' style of animation. So it's it's very weird how the laws of animation and the look of things are. That's where I'm thinking that that each character sees as their universe. But then it's also another thing where you have Lego Spider-Man is now a thing in there. So it's will he always be a Lego? Which is probably because even Peter, and even Peter Porker is still very cartoonish. even when he came into the Spider-Verse, and it's just it's very strange on how these laws work with the whole multiverse and the way things are in each universe and how each character looks in each universe. So it's one thing that I was thinking about, and now that we're talking about it again, Miles in that universe is in 1610. In the comics, of course, his main universe is 1610, and then he goes into 616. Yeah. So in movie terms, this Miles should be transported at some point to the 616 MCU. Yeah. Even though in the movie they kind of like hinted that it was 1999, which was the designation before Far From Home first mentioned it as 616.